Hey, sports parents, if we haven't met, my name is Jonathan Carone, and I'm the host of the show. Today, I've got a really fun conversation for you. I've invited 3 Division I head coaches to the show: Coach Helen Peña from Ball State Softball, Coach Dan Meske from Louisville Volleyball, and Coach Bobby Muuss from Wake Forest Men's Soccer. Our conversation today is all about the ins and outs of recruiting, what it takes to play in college at all levels, not just Division I, and how parents can approach the entire process of youth sports, but also recruiting in the healthiest ways possible. One quick thing to know, though, we ran a little bit long and Coach Meske had to run to a meeting, so he bails out with like 5 minutes to go. So if he disappears and you're wondering where he went, he had other stuff he had to do. But I'm super thankful for the time that these coaches gave us, and I could not be more appreciative that they were so willing to come on here and encourage you all on this journey. But before we get to my conversation with them, we're going to take a quick break to pay some bills and share some resources with you, and then we'll have our conversation on the other side of the break. We all know our kids need a break from their sport. We talk about it all the time around here. So if you're looking for a great option this summer, let me tell you about Camp Blue Ridge. Camp Blue Ridge is a sleepaway camp in Clayton, Georgia that's been family owned and operated for more than 50 years and has been named the top summer camp in the Southeast for 5 years running. They offer 2, 5, and 7-week sessions for boys and girls ages 6 to 16. Your kid can choose from more than 45 activities like athletics and aquatics, the arts, climbing, water skiing, gymnastics, archery, and a whole lot more. Here's the best part though. Camp Blue Ridge is offering $750 off summer 2026 tuition for Healthy Sports Parents listeners. You can sign up at blueridgecamp.com and tell them you're a Healthy Sports Parents listener, and they'll give you that $750 discount. Let's make this summer one your kid will never forget. Hey, sports parents, if your kids are hitting those puberty years, you know how smelly it can get after practice or a game. That is where PlayPits comes in, an all-natural, toxic-free deodorant made for us by a mom. My kids tried it and immediately started fighting over which scent they got to keep. With clean ingredients and scents like lemon, orange and peppermint, or lavender, PlayPits keeps the whole family smelling fresh and #funk-free all day long. Grab yours at playpits.com and use code HSP15 for 15% off your first order, or find it online at Target, Amazon, or Walmart. Here's to healthy kids and better smelling rides home thanks to PlayPits. Hey, sports parents, if your kid plays on multiple teams, or if you've got more than one kid playing, you know the hat problem. Constantly swapping team hats every weekend just to match the uniform your kid's wearing. That's why I love my friends at Ball Brand. They make high-quality sports-based hats, not team-based, so you can show your love for the game itself no matter the team your kid is playing for. The hats are all built from a heavyweight fabric with clean, modern embroidery that looks good anywhere. To make it even better, every hat you purchase helps support youth sports programs and charities through their Keep the Ball Rolling initiative. At Ball Brand, they believe in more fan wear, less franchise. Visit ball-brand.com and use code CHILLY15 for 15% off your first hat. Coaches, thanks for being here. We appreciate you all taking time with us because we know you're super busy. Before we get into this, I want to introduce each of you so that our listeners can hear your voices and know who belongs to who. So, Coach Peña, we're going to start with you. Can you introduce yourself, what you coach, and where you're at?
Yeah, my name is Helen Peña. I'm the head coach at Ball State for softball.
And Dan, you're up next.
Dan Meske, head women's volleyball coach here at the University of Louisville. Another bird. Our birds get mixed up, by the way. I know this is a lot of audio only, but our birds get mixed up. So we're the one that's got teeth. We're the fighting bird with teeth.
Coach Meske's the reason my 9-year-old son likes watching volleyball now.
Love it. We'll take him.
He got hooked on it in the NCAA tournament, and like we were at a dance recital in December with an iPad, sitting there watching the Elite Eight of the women's volleyball tournament because Owen got hooked watching Dan's team play. So thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Coach Muuss, you're next.
Yeah, my name is Bobby Muuss. I'm the head men's soccer coach here at Wake Forest University.
And my kids have gotten to go to his camp, so we'll be there again this summer. All right, so here's how today is going to work. I have a billion questions, but we have a limited amount of time. So I've set the episode up in 4 segments, And we're going to put ourselves on the clock, no more than 10 minutes per segment. But each coach gets one challenge where they can blow through the clock if they have something they feel like they need to say and the clock runs out on us. So there will be questions that we don't get to, but I'd rather us have good discussions on the questions we do hit than blow through as many as possible, but only stay at the surface. And just so everyone knows, the clock will start after I ask the first question. I'm not going to set the clock up on my setup for the different segments. So we'll hit each 4 segments. I'll do an intro for each one, and then we will let the coaches go because I know you all want to hear from them more than you want to hear from me. So the first segment we have is all about the recruiting reality check, because I am a giant believer that we have to count the costs before we do anything. Back when I was in student ministry, when I was recruiting leaders, our volunteer leaders, I would actually try to talk them out of leading before I signed them up, because I knew if I told them all the struggles and the hard things they'd have to do as a leader and they still wanted to do it, they'd be a great leader and were doing it for the right reasons. You guys can speak to this in a second, but I think a lot of kids love the idea of being a Division I athlete, but they don't know what all goes into it and what all it takes. So before we get to the specific recruiting questions, I want to ask a few basic questions to help our listeners and their kids decide if they want to even go through this process. So Coach Peña, we're going to start with you, and then we can roll around to everyone else. How good is a Division I player? And another way to ask that might be, what's the difference between a pretty good high school player and a Division I athlete?
I would say the key difference to start would be the consistency of the fundamentals, just being able to do the little things the right way consistently. The second huge piece of that, I would say, is they respond to failure and setbacks faster, especially in our sport, softball, baseball. There's a lot of failure to be had. And, if you strike out or ground out your first at bat and you can't respond, then you're probably going to go 0 for 3 that day. So just the ability to reset, refocus, recover, I think is a major aspect between a high school player, like a really good high school player, and a really good Division I softball player.
Dan, you guys are a little interesting because size is such a big piece of this for you all. Like, how would you answer that question?
So there was a legendary coach in the volleyball landscape, Russ Rose. He coached at Penn State, and I've always remembered what he said about recruiting. And he said, if it's not the best kid you've ever seen, she probably can't play for me. And that kind of sets the water level in the fact of, like, there's a few great clubs that, okay, you're going to have multiple Division I players every year. Well, those coaches we know. When you're getting to know a brand new high school coach or a club coach, it's a pretty good water level statement of, like, if this is not the best kid you've ever coached, she's probably not in the conversation, because the level is it's so high and it's such a small percentage of players. And I'll take a quick example of, like, a lot of the listeners. I'm sure I was just at a 2nd grade basketball tournament. My middle son plays basketball, and there was this one kid. There was probably 10 teams there, right? And so there's 100 kids or whatever it is. And there was one kid on another team, and my wife played Division I volleyball too, and she's like, that kid's posture is, like, ridiculous. And you could tell this is, like, the kid who's, like, he's going to be a gnarly athlete. He's in 2nd grade. But that kid's probably going to play, like, D2 or D3 somewhere. Maybe not play at all, but that was, like, the one kid of 100 kids that was like, man, you can kind of tell. And again, that kid maybe won't even play D1. Of, like, every kid in that 2nd grade basketball, there's probably not a Division I basketball player there. But that was the one kid, and that kid may play D3, may not do anything. But I remember sitting there with my wife being like, yeah, that's, like, the one. And even that kid has, like, barely any shot probably to play D1. It's just such a small percentage.
Bobby, in your world, we're also competing with European athletes so much. How would you answer the question?
Well, I add into what you're saying there is, but you do this for a living, right? So you could see that. And you know how many parents are sitting there probably saying, my son's going to be in the NBA out of that 2nd grade one, right? Like, that's where and again, I have a daughter playing college volleyball now, and we looked at it, and I'm like, you walk from court to court at those major events that I have no idea how you guys recruit at, and I'm like, that girl is so gifted, and then you can come and be like, no, she's not. I think that's just the realization of what it is. But yeah, we have the international market to deal with as well. So now you're recruiting worldwide in some ways, and I think it's unfortunate for the American high school athlete that has the ambitions and goals to play at the highest level, because the less and less, and now we have, as we all do now, right? There's roster spots that have come in where it's limited, where maybe back in the day you can give a kid an opportunity that you saw long-term potential in. But like I tell people all the time now, I'm not worried about long-term. I'm worried about right now. We want to win now. And I think that's the nature of the beast. But my job it's difficult. I think all of our jobs are difficult and easy at the same time. As Dan said it best, you just have to be the best at what you do, right? And I do think, to add to what Helen said, is like, you have to have a specialty is something I look at too, right? And being the jack of all trades, master of none doesn't really help us. Like I want to know the reliability, the consistency piece, and just what do you bring to the table every day and what are you special at? But when you look at the difficulty that we're seeing currently is if you're looking at players maybe not at the most elite programs where you have those relationships, with coaches where you're like, Dan was talking about, there's certain clubs. It's how do those players transition into the college game, with the increased intensity and the physicality, and our schedules, all of our schedules are so condensed. I mean, hell, you probably play 400 games in 3 months. I don't know how softball and baseball do it. But there's so many competitions, right? But, it's not easy. I like to echo what both coaches said earlier. I'm on the last of this, going through this circle, but my son, John, we talked about it, right? I coach my son's rec team, and I love him to death. He's most likely not going to be a Division I college soccer player, although he thinks he's playing at Wake with me. Not saying I will never tell him what he can't do. I believe in him, but when you're looking at those young ages, I'm like, that kid's got something. And even those kids that do have something, what do they do with it over the next whatever years it is? And not living in that comfort world. And I think a lot of us as parents and players, we live in bubbles and we really don't know what's out there. As coaches, we're fortunate because we get to travel all over the place and look at the very best. And not just what's in our backyard. And I think that's where it gets a little foggy, for parents, of just not knowing what else is out there. I mean, I'm a Long Island kid. We only knew what was on Long Island, right? And Long Island is a lot of people on Long Island in New York, but it's not America, and it's certainly not the world. So I think we get caught in a little bit of a bubble.
The best kid up here in King, just north of Wake. We're not going anywhere up here, Bobby. Is that what you're saying?
I did not say that. Yeah, I did not say that at all. Hey. You never know where
Bobby's
they're coming
favorite
from.
thing outside of coaching is making fun of the town I live in. So
no. I just think your accent is extremely good for that town.
So there's this high percentage in the NFL of small town athletes. Have you guys ever seen this study of like the NFL? You would think that all these players would come from major metropolitan areas and there's just so many more people, but there's this crazy percentage of NFL players that come from small towns because of the fact of what we're saying of like being the best and like being the best of the best at multiple things too. And I do think when you look at the Division I level, cities that have great clubs do churn out, a good percentage, but there is something to be said about being the best at multiple things amongst a smaller population, because I think it has to do with the grittiness and the confidence and the stuff that comes with that too. But I thought that was kind of an interesting thing you said too, of like the Long Island, and it's like, yeah, there's little hotbeds for our sport where you probably wouldn't see great talent come out of there, but I think it is interesting, the small town mentality of like always being the best at multiple things. That probably translates, maybe not in our sport that's pretty specialized, but I thought, I saw a study about that in the NFL, that there's so many small town kids that make it to the NFL.
So quick hit answer for this, and we'll start with Dan on this one. How much work does it take to be a Division I player?
As much work as it takes to be great at anything. So I don't think that it's, hey, now that you're D1, like the player of the year at Division II probably works as hard as the player, an All-American player of the year at Division I. I do think that it's hard work is hard work and grittiness is grittiness. And I do think sometimes D1 gets a different, but that's D1. It's like hard work is hard work, and, a great kid is a great kid. And I do think I coached Division II for a number of years, so I can speak to that of like the great kids we had were very similar in the way that they went about their business to the great kids we have at Division I.
Coach Peña, you're about to start your season, like in January. How hard is it to play Division I softball?
I mean, kind of what he said. I mean, the work that goes into it, And it's not just about how much you work, it's the quality of the work, right? If you're going out there and you're trying to work on your swing, but you're doing the wrong thing over and over, like you're just making that hole in the swing worse. So I think having a plan, like I said before, being able to do the little things the right way and then build on that foundation is really what sets some kids apart, because like we have to recruit a good softball player first, right? And then from there, okay, are they good people? Are they good students? Do they come from a good family? But if the foundation and skill sets aren't there to begin with, we can't rebuild in 4 years. And that's not going to make us better. Like what Coach Bobby said, day one, like we want to win. And so I think what goes into it, yes, the work and the amount of work on top of coming to practice and going to the weight room and things like that, but it's the quality and detail of the work, I think. That really makes a difference.
Bobby, 35 seconds.
Yeah, details is when Coach Helen was saying that, like it's all about details. And I also think is working on your weaknesses, not just your strengths. Obviously, if you're good at something, you want to always get better at it and make it a specialty. But I think a lot of people, when they go out and work hard or they do extra, most of the time, if you just drive by my fields, like people are doing things that they're good at instead of being uncomfortable and getting better at things they're not so good at. And I think that's what makes an elite athlete. It's like trying to conquer things they're not great at and getting a little bit better, because you can't be great at one thing and not good at something else, because you need to be a well-rounded player, especially from an investment perspective as well.
There was the buzzer. I'm going to use a challenge here and blow through, because I have one other question on this front that I want you guys to answer. So quick hit on this one if we can. How often do you guys get kids on campus and they're shocked by the demands of training and practice and school and all of the stuff that they thought it was going to be something different than it actually is? Does that happen a lot?
The ones who are elite, I think they're already doing some of those things. Like they have like they work out in the weight room. They have a personal trainer. They are focusing on nutrition. I think the one thing that they don't understand, that how much work goes into it, is the mental side of the game. I think that's always a shock for them. And then, like I said, like how intense the workouts are, I would say. Some of them are already actually doing it, but the intensity at which it's being done is probably different. And then the mental side, I would say.
I'll piggyback on Helen's answer, because I think the time demands are in some regards easier in the college level, because like you just have the one thing where, again, this is another question later probably, but like youth sports has been so just like commercialized that it's every hour of the day. And so, okay, if I'm in school till 3, well, then I can do something from 3 to 5. But like most of our, in the volleyball world, we're an indoor sport, but most of our girls train until like 10 at night. And then some of them are also driving to get there. So they're getting back at 10:30. When do they do their homework? And so I'm like, when do you guys sleep? Like teenagers, that's the most important thing you need is sleep. So it's like all of a sudden they come to college and they're actually able to rest more, and they're actually be able to be a better version of themselves. But what Helen said, the intensity of the time that they are spending, and then the mental tax that takes. And the mental tax is, okay, now everybody's good, and I have to deal with failure more often, and I have to deal with, okay, how does that define me as a person? So then it's like, it's not the time on the court that's hard, it's the time that's off the court, because now I'm doubting it, or I'm second guessing myself, and where do I fit in with this landscape? That's the biggest challenge that we see getting to the college level, is the mental strain of what you're able to do. But I do think the time almost goes down somewhat, of just the demand on your time. There's more time to rest and recover.
Bobby, can I reframe the question for you a little bit? Because you're the only one here that's the dad of an athlete. Was there anything that caught your daughter by surprise when she got to school and started playing?
Oh, it sounds like an arrogant dad when I said I don't think so. I do think is having structure, I think, is important. I think that was important for my daughter, and I think she has it where she's like, she's a good kid, like a rules follower. So if I have to do study hall, I have to do that. She's going to do it. And I think having that, I think, has made her successful. She's doing better academically now in college than she did in high school. I'm extremely proud of that. And I think it's because, she wants to be successful in something. I do think is the thing that I think is, she is a coach's daughter in some ways, right? And I'm proud of that, is she wants to be around like-minded people. And I think that when you're choosing an institution, it's like being able to play versus not being able to play, surrounding yourself with like-minded people that have the same goals of you. And I think that's probably sometimes that could be really good or frustrating depending on your mentality. And I do think that's the difference probably in the different levels is, Division One. I mean, for all my guys, they all want to be pros. So they want to be around like-minded people that are pros. But that means you're around the elite in all positions, 1 through 28. That's where the mental, capacity comes in. I think as you look at, I played Division II. We talked about this. I was committed to the sport, but in the end, I probably knew I wasn't going to be a professional. So I had a little bit of a balance. And then, my daughter as a Division III athlete is, they're there for academics, with the opportunity to compete at a high level, in the sport that they love. And I think trying to find that balance is important. And I don't think, everybody wants to be a Division I athlete, but they want to have this, they want to have this, they want to have this. I think trying to find that right gauge. And right now, I think is, like I always tell people, like she had a great freshman year. We talk about this and everybody knows, and we'll talk about this later. It's like, is she going to go in the portal? Why? She found a place that she's doing really well academically. She's, she found a niche, in the volleyball world. She likes her teammates. She likes the area. Why should we, what I mean? That's the most important thing about finding a school, and I think that's important to realize as well.
All right. Switching to segment 2, which is kind of more nuts and bolts recruiting here, like the mechanics and the timelines, because I think this is where a lot of people have questions. So this is a little less heart focused and more just tactical. Bobby, we'll start with you, and I know this is going to be different for everyone, but when does recruiting realistically start for kids? If they're wanting to play in college, like what age should they start looking at getting seen? Because there are these recruiting gurus online that are telling people that they need to be seen in 7th and 8th grade. Does it really start that early, or like what's the timeline here?
It honestly, that is a loaded question because it is changing yearly, right? It really is. I mean, sophomore year is when we started looking, and really start in every sport is different, right? In men's college soccer, it was sophomore year we started identifying, and then when you're allowed to communicate junior year, you do that, and then we were committing a lot of kids junior year, right? You're allowed to bring them on campus. So we were committing a lot more. That is slowed down for us now because of the portal. If you fill your roster with, at that time, 17 years old, even 16-year-old kids, and you don't really know what your needs are at the end of a fall season. Being a fall sport, you don't know what your needs are. And then you want older, we just had a kid just went from nowhere to being drafted number 5 and signed a contract today where we thought he had him back. So how are you going to replace a number 5 draft pick overall with a 17-year-old high school kid is really hard. So I do think that's changed a lot. But I will say this is I don't think you should change your mentality and what you want to do just because I don't like hearing this. This is a really important year for me. Every year is a really important year for you if you want to continue to develop, right, and have opportunities, at the elite programs that we have on this podcast, right? Like every year is important. And I do think at the elite level, we're doing the recruiting. The kids aren't doing the recruiting. And I think that's the differences, right? That you have to look through. But it's varied. I'm not saying next year, Jonathan, we can be on this call and saying, hey, it's younger. But right now we've really slowed it down. Like roster spots comes into that as well. We just talked about it as a staff. It's like, hey, we're going to slow down until the spring to see how our spring team does and see what holes maybe that we thought we had filled that maybe we don't.
Coach Peña, what's it look like for you guys?
For us, I would say we start having a list and sending out mailers and things like that when they're 9th grade. I think that's when we try to get them on our radar. We try to be 1 year out, right? So right now we're on the 27s, but we have a good chunk of 28s already kind of, on the list, on the mailers, trying to get them to camps, trying to get to know them a bit more and see how coachable they are, see if they could fit into our system of things that we do here. And so for us, it starts then, I would say, the 7th and 8th grade, I mean, I would love to see them play different sports. I would love to see them not just be softball only. But for us, it would be high school 9th grade is kind of where we start to build that big list, and then it starts to narrow down each year until we're able to talk to them September 1 of junior year.
Coach Meske, what's it look like for you?
Yeah, ours is similar. We can make verbal offers June 15th after their sophomore year of high school, so going into their junior year. And so, yeah, we're building our list that freshman year. And then more to maybe your question, too, of like what kids or parents can do is, don't pay for a recruiting service unless you know what you're paying for. Like, you're paying for a service, and it probably gives you some mental, like it makes you feel a little bit better, but they don't really move the needle for you recruiting-wise. But there's still a market for that. If you feel like, I paid X amount, and it's kind of like private lessons. Sometimes it's like I paid X amount, I care X amount, and sometimes that just like fills a need. But those don't move the needle for anybody on this call for sure. And then for us, yeah, we build that list a year out. So that summer after your freshman year, you can kind of make some headway with camps. Like for us, there's always a camp kid that kind of comes out of nowhere and is like an awesome kid and introduces herself to everybody. And it's just like, man, she was really good. We're going to watch her like her sophomore year when she plays for her travel team. Like that can move the needle a little bit to get you a little bit more on the radar. But it's not like, I think, Bobby, you had it's like, this is a huge year for me. Like that's not how great recruits find great programs. Like every year is important and every match is important and all of that. So again, freshman year is a pretty big year for getting on a list, and then those camps after your freshman year can get you maybe a little bit more exposure leading into, for us, the end of the sophomore year.
Dan, you set me up with where I wanted to go next. And I know that every coach and program is a little different here, so there's not a one-size-fits-all. But what's the balance between ID camps and showcases and overall club ball? And, like, where should the focus be? And from your perspective, Dan, and we'll hit everybody individually, but where do you guys look most?
Yeah, I've been high-level D1 and then D2. And so D2, obviously, you think our list is quite a bit bigger, but we were always focused local. I think everybody recruiting-wise is always focused local, regardless of level. You got to be great in your region. And so ID camps and exposure camps and all that stuff, I never use that at Division II level. Sometimes I think, I'm at Louisville and we have such a small list anyways, and we've never used any of that. Now there's in our sport there's a USA pipeline, and those camps move the needle, but those are very hard to get involved in. Those are not pay to play kind of situations. But as far as anything else, showcases or anything like that, at no place I've ever been at has that been valuable for the team that I was. Division II, we were a top 10 team at the Division II level. Here at Louisville, we finished top 10 last year. So those showcases, we never were able to find value in going to those. We were more specific with our recruiting, so there wasn't much value. But again, there's a lot of colleges I've never heard of and a lot of different levels that probably NAIA, Division III, that those might get you quite a bit of interest. But I can't speak to that.
Coach Helen, what about you guys?
So about 95% of our recruits have come to a camp. To me, that's really important for them to get in front of us. Some of them have come and then we got interested. Two of my freshman pitchers that are with me right now, they came to my very first Ball State camp when I first got here in September of 2023. And I followed them that fall. I liked what I saw, and then they're here now. And so for us, institution camps are really important. And from there, it's whether we like you and then we invite you to a camp, or we see you at a camp and then we want to go watch you play against, like elite teams, club teams and things like that. They have to be able to face good competition, as well as come to a camp and see how coachable they are and things like that. So we kind of have to balance both, I would say, because we want them to face the best of the best. And then we also want to be able to work with them and be hands-on. So,
real quick, I got to clarify with what Helen said too. So institution camps, 100% of our players that come here have come through our camps, 95 probably before the offer has been extended. So yeah, institution camps are massively important. I was speaking a little bit more towards, hey, I'm going to go to this city and go to this showcase, and colleges are going to show up and they're going to recruit me. We haven't found much value in that, but the institution camps are massive. That same percentage that Helen spoke to. I just want to make sure I clarified that.
Bobby, what's it look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, we don't do a lot of outside camps besides, ours. I mean, I work a couple, and my staff work a couple of ID camps with other major institutions at it. We have a handful of guys that we took notice, like Helen said, at those camps, and then if it's off campus, invited them to ours to get a little bit more hands on, get to meet some of the guys as well, and how do they work with and see and be around the campus. But to be fair, I use camp as an opportunity to see and then want to see them in their own environment. Because I think the biggest question for us is at camp, what is the level like? You can't say you have to be like it's open to all. So you want to see a kid dominate at those camps, and then how does that translate, or how is that transition going to be to the Division I level? That's what we want to try to see them in their environment. But I do think, especially for people that maybe don't have the resumes or on the big clubs, to get in front of coaches on their campuses and open up eyes to that, I think is extremely important. And I would say that I feel those values from a financial, almost similar to Dan saying, I think you should spend money doing that more than maybe with a service. But there are services, because there's so many schools out there, right? Division I, II, NAIAG, like there's so many different universities that some people are going to need some help. So there's value there. But I do think you get your best bang for the buck. Now I will say, and last part is, I am not a big proponent of going to an ID camp or an institutional camp where that's the only school, right? I always say is that the more schools that are there, different level schools that are there, I think is the best bang for your buck. Because I realize if my daughter's going to Dan's camp, right, and there's 100 kids at that camp, the chance that, she is going to be, probably recruited just for Louisville is low. Like, let's be fair, but maybe there's, Dan's got 3 really good close friends that coach at different levels, right? And they're there at that camp playing against elite players that are going to Louisville and actually can be noticed. I think there's great value to that.
I'm going to blow through one more time because I have a pet peeve question that I want to get on camera so I can share this. One of the things that drives me crazy, Dan, you've seen some of this, Bobby, you've seen some of this in the stuff that I've posted with you all, is these like 9U recruiting profiles on Instagram, because people think they're building something for NIL, or that they think coaches are looking at followers or anything like that. So if you all had a 30-second message about youth recruiting profiles, and you could say anything you wanted to the parents who are thinking about or feeling the pressure to start an elementary school or a middle school recruiting profile, what would you say? And Dan, you smiled the most when I first brought this up, so you get to go first.
I don't know if you'll like my answer though, because it's like, I mean, that's not going to help you get recruited, but that might be something that connects you with your kid and you're into that, or that's how you want to expose them to social media. I mean, I'm not here to judge that. Like, you do whatever builds your relationship with them. And there's, maybe you are trying to get, monetize that in some other way that's not to get you to play at a high level and win. So again, I stay, I mean, I'm on social media too much, and I'm not on it all that much. And it's like, I don't judge any of that stuff. It's the less opinions I have, the happier I am.
Coach Peña, what are your thoughts on the young kid recruiting profile?
If they're 9, they don't need to have one. Like, if they're 9 years old, like, I get it if you're 13 maybe, and you're, because if you're 13, you're in 7th grade. So yeah, like, I completely get that. I almost laugh sometimes when I get like a 20, 35 or, like email. What are we doing? Just go have fun. Like, go outside, play, like, go do different sports. I think sometimes that can take the joy out of it. Honestly, when things get that serious, I know some parents that push really hard at an early age. Sometimes it works, if it's that type of kid, and sometimes it can backfire and really lose love for the sport. And so I think let them be kids, 9, 10U. Once they get into puberty and things like that, and the body starts changing, and they start to get into middle school, then I think that's where they can start build that profile and followers and things like that. But I think it's a little outrageous for 9U, just to be honest.
Bobby?
I didn't even know this was a thing. I mean, my kids don't even have a phone, right? I have a 9 and 11-year-old. They see, oh, I think it's great, Dad, get me a phone. Then how? Like this is mind blowing to me. But I know that if they're trying to monetize, right? And Jonathan, we had pretty good viewership on ours. Like, and I have to thank you for this. I mean, I make money on social media, right? I make 7 cents a month. So like if that gives parents any, if they're trying to monetize, right? I feel like I have a decent amount of followers, some decent content, and 7 cents a month. So they have to work extremely hard to monetize. But yeah, I think it's, hey, we all, as parents, right? We all want what's best for our kids. And unfortunately we like to live through them, right? Like my time is done. I'm going to my son's indoor game today at 5:15. I'm going to sit there and I want him to score 17 goals and be the best player on the field. But in the end, I just want to make sure he leaves with a smile on his face, right? He's around the game that he sees all the time with me. I just want him to enjoy it. That's all I can ask. And I want him to sit down and watch a game with me. We can have fun about it and we're not critiquing it. And like you said, Helen, I want him to be good at anything he does, right? That's our job as parents. But yeah, that may be a little bit too much, Jonathan, to be fair.
All right, segment 3. Coach Bobby, we're going to start with you on this one. But this segment's all about club sports, high school sports, and just access to the whole thing. And one thing I'm keenly aware of is that, especially in the youth sports landscape, is the inequality of access. The Project Play just put out a new study in December that said costs have risen 46% since 2019. And a lot of these clubs, especially at the levels that you're getting players from, are $10,000 to $15,000 per year once you add in travel. So how would you all, or what would you say to the parent who has a kid who they know how hard it's going to be, but that kid really wants to compete at the Division I level for a scholarship, but their family just can't afford all of these club and travel costs? Like, how does that kid go about being seen or getting recruited?
You gave me the hardest question of the day, probably, right? And that's the one I get to start with. I was third, right? I was playing cleanup earlier. Yeah, this
Wake
is
Forest education.
I didn't go to Wake Forest. I just work here. But no, it's a really hard question, Jonathan, too, because there are kids that fall through the cracks. But I will say, at least in my sport, there's less and less of that. And I think the professional soccer realm has changed it a little bit. Because we're trying to make, the MLS and our professional, world here an elite, league to play in worldwide. So there's tons and tons more scouts in smaller communities. And, it's rarer now, I guess, that a kids fall through the cracks. There's still out there's some hidden gems. On the flip side a little bit, I think as parents, as clubs, we have to have the realistic approach of, you and I have spoken about this before, is why are they playing? If they're playing for the sole reason to get a Division I scholarship, I think we're playing for the wrong reasons, right? And I mean, the joy of the game, getting better at something, being a teammate, time management, what it's like to work hard. That's the value. That's where as a parent, that's what I'm paying for. I'm not paying solely for my kid to get a Division I, any type of scholarship at that point, right? It's the life lessons I think that sport teach us. And maybe I'm a little bit corny on it, but I do think that's the approach. Like, my son's playing soccer now. He's going to soccer camp. He goes to a good soccer camp at a discounted rate, though. But he goes to, he's going to my soccer camp, but he's going to camp just for the social aspect, to play the game that he loves. Not even maybe to even get better. I don't want him to leave. Did you have fun? That's the first question we ask. If we're not asking that question, I think we lost sight of everything. So again, in men's soccer, there's a little bit less of the hidden gems that are out there. But I get it. I mean, it is hard. I do think if you're good enough, sometimes there are maybe some club scholarships, and I know that clubs have it. But it's unfortunate. But you're looking at, from a club perspective and a sports perspective, we could look at this in anything in life, right? If there's not, financial needs, right? Sometimes, you don't have the technology you need to be successful. You don't have the education or the extra resources educationally to be successful. And that's a sad part of our country as a whole, right? Not to get too political, but that's sad, right? We do community engagement. That kid is an unbelievable young man or woman and may not have the same opportunities because of the zip code they live in or the resources financially they have. So it's not like I'm going to say that's just life, because it stinks. But yeah, it's really hard, Jonathan, to really paint a picture, right? I mean, we're all going to do everything we possibly can to help our kids reach their goals and ambitions. But I do think it comes at what cost, right? Because those goals and ambitions, to reach those, I think we have to be honest at a certain age as well, right? That maybe we have to, are you doing this for fun or are you doing this for a scholarship? Because the scholarship thing may not be coming.
Coach Meske, what's it look like for you?
Well, getting back to the cost side of it, in volleyball, I would assume it's probably like this in most sports. But if you look at any club in volleyball, and for us, club volleyball is where the recruiting happens. High school is not very efficient
100%.
for us to recruit. It's all the travel teams. It's all club. And all of these clubs, if you ask any of these coaches, hey, how did this club start? It almost always started very similar to how gyms start, where they have a personal trainer who's like, I can go do this better. I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to keep the money on my own. I'll do it better. That's how all the clubs started. Is okay, there was a coach, and his kid was playing. He didn't like how he started his own club, and then somebody went off. That's how every single one of these clubs started. And so, unfortunately, where we're at right now is, a lot of those clubs, their kids have phased out, and private equity has come into our game. I don't know if it has in everybody else's game. And so they've bought these clubs up for their tournaments and for the things that they have, and then they've jacked the prices up, and we're left to kind of pick up the pieces. So you have two options. You can pay for the machine that turns, and you don't have to worry about when you order uniforms and when the deadline is for state of play and all that stuff, and you just got to pay for it. Or you can, try to get a group together and find a coach and do your own thing. That's what it was back in the day too. It was like, I didn't like how this was going, so I'm going to try and do. But if you don't have the time and energy to do that, then you are kind of stuck with what your options are. There is no other option to that. And for us, the costs have gone crazy because, again, just honestly in volleyball, a lot of these clubs, when they've started, their kids have kind of aged out. So these club directors and the people running the show are kind of stuck with, what am I doing this for? And here's this out that I have for my retirement, and somebody else can kind of run it. And that's a lot of club volleyball right now, and it's getting privatized, and you're just kind of stuck with it. I have, my 10-year-old, my oldest, he's part of a club now. He loves volleyball, and so this weekend's our first experience with state of play. It's Saturday at 2:00. We play a match in Cincinnati, which is 90 miles from where I live, and we have to pay for a hotel on Friday night to play in that tournament. And again, I could say, I'm going to run a club. I know how to coach, but it's like, I'm just stuck. I don't want to do that. So I have to pay this club, and we're going to pay for a hotel room we probably won't even stay in on Friday, because that's just what youth sports is at this moment. I don't agree with it, but I also am not going to start my own club.
Coach Peña, what about you?
I would say for us, it's, you have the teams that are national level, and then you have the more regional teams. We've gotten a couple of kids that are more regional, that weren't playing in these big national tournaments in California, Florida, Georgia, and things like that. And they're still really good athletes, right? But they just didn't have the money to play on the national level and to travel everywhere in the U.S. And so I think every circumstance is different. I was a product of this as well. I single parent dad, construction worker, and my travel ball coach that I was with, we had a national team, was one of the best in the nation, but he was able to work with me and my dad and basically canceled our fees, so we didn't have to play that part. So if you find people that are bought into you and that can, luckily, I was very fortunate in that aspect. Other times, I think a regional team is probably the route to go, and then trying to go to some ID camps, so that you're not traveling everywhere in the U.S., but you're also going and getting seen and visiting, institutions and things like that. So I think it's a case by case. But for us, softball, there are options out there to try to navigate both, I would say.
One of the things that, Dan, I think you were the one that mentioned, but I think this goes for all three of you. It's kind of impossible for you all to recruit from high school at this point, just with the talent gaps and all that. But I'm a big believer in high school ball for the sake of the kid. Maybe that's not where they get recruited from. Maybe that's not where they're super challenged, but it's a great thing for the kid to play with the kids that they go to school with. And I know, Bobby, with MLS Next, those kids can't play high school. And a lot of play, like it just, they're literally, the league does not allow them to play for their high school. So outside of recruiting, like how, and we're going to blow past the 10-minute thing here in a minute, but outside of recruiting, as a coach, as someone who's invested in kids as a whole, how important is it for them to play high school, even if that doesn't mean that's where they're going to be found? And Helen, we'll start with you on that one.
I mean, I think it's huge when it comes to leadership. How well you can work with others that maybe aren't at your level, how you can lead them, help teach them, things like that. And then for us, I mean, that's travel ball sometimes is so watered down. Like there's one team that's branching out into 30 different teams, and it's so watered down that I think high school, you start to get the first sense of pride, right? The name across the chest is bigger than the name like on the back. And so for me, I think not only leadership skills and how to work together and things like that, it teaches them, but also that pride aspect of us versus everyone else, especially when if they go far into state or CIF or things like that. So to me, those are two big aspects that I think high school ball can teach, maybe sometimes more than travel ball.
Bobby, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know a lot of your kids are coming from MLS Next and they're not playing high school.
Yeah, I say, Coach Helen said something about like leadership and learning how to lead. I actually felt like I learned how to be led in high school and how to take critique or from upperclassmen. I think, Jonathan, you know my story a little bit is my daughter grew up in Colorado. I've been here and I fly back and forth, right, while she was playing high school volleyball. And one of the best things I've done, not just to see her, is to watch her play high school volleyball and see the school there and the camaraderie and different sports rooting for each other and just afterwards being on the court. And I come back and I meet with my guys. I'm like, I feel bad for you. I feel bad that you didn't have the same experiences that my daughter just had, right? And you said, like playing for something bigger than just a club, right? The club soccer is like you go to a game, you win or lose, you're going to play another one next weekend. Right. And there's value to this, but more important, I think the leadership aspect, the accountability piece, to be able to play with an older player where your decision in game is, does this person's career continue or end? Because a lot of times that's the first time in college that happens. Like looking towards a captain, that's a senior in high school and I'm a sophomore or a freshman. And literally the chance of those people playing again at the end, they may just be going to school, right? Up the street or across the country just to go to school. Not saying that's a bad thing. That came out wrong, but like not just going to school, but they're not going to play their sport ever again. And your decision on what you did had an impact on that. I think that's invaluable for me as a coach. Right. So I miss the fact that, you don't get to see that, or that I can't go to a game and watch one of my players like lead their team to a state championship as much as I used to be able to.
Dan, last word here.
100% have to play high school. I just learned that soccer players that play MLS Next can't play high school, and I think that's tragic. I don't get it. I have to do it. We've never had a kid not play high school ball. There's no reason not to.
Succinct. Look at you. It's like you do. Like you have.
It's true though, because everything that they said too, and they're talking about that, and I'm thinking about my high school experience. And yeah, I went on and played D1 and all that, and I was one of the better players. I couldn't imagine telling my college coach, "Hey, I'm not going to play high school because I can't even think of a reason for that." Oh, my setter's not good, or I don't like my coach, or my coach is the gym teacher. Who cares? If it's a team sport, you have to play for your high school. I don't understand any reason you wouldn't.
Unless you're not allowed to, Dan.
Unless you're not allowed to, yeah. There you go.
You're not allowed to.
I'm the PA announcer for my high school's baseball team, and last season we had 9 seniors, and I think 3 of them were going on to play in college. But we lost in the second round of the playoffs at home in an upset. And watching those 18-year-old men weep in the outfield because it's like these guys had played together since they were 9 years old. And like one of the coolest stories of that, our starting center fielder, he was going on to welding school. That was what was next for him. He was going to go to community college and become a welder. And He had pitched growing up, but by the time he got to junior and senior year, didn't pitch very much anymore, just played outfield. After that game, he went up to the catcher, who was a senior as well, and asked to throw a bullpen with him. So after we had cried it all out in the outfield, like, we kept the lights on, I kept the music going, I did all this stuff so that Micah and Sam could go to the bullpen and throw one last time together. You don't get that in club ball.
Emotional.
No.
No. Very sensitive.
You get in the car and you blame someone else why you lost. That's what you do.
Yeah, Helen, the room got dusty for me just there too, so you're not the only one with that. So we'll move to the last segment here, segment 4. Dan, we'll start with you so that Helen has a chance to compose herself as well.
Appreciate that.
But this last segment's all about family dynamics and the role that families play in this process. I have the question I'm going to end with, so that you guys kind of know probably what's coming with that. But overall, what role do parents play in the recruiting process, and where do they most often get in the way? Take that however you want, but what role do parents play?
That's a great question. I mean, I think parents, I always think of my oldest is 10, so I'm learning this as I go. But I always think, a parent is a provider. And so you can provide opportunity and provide, support and just provide. But, I've seen so many different ways with the recruiting process where parents are over involved and they're, just kind of let them do it on their own. And I do think that the recruiting process is a reflection of that parent, child relationship. So it's not like it's going to drastically change. If you're kind of all over them their whole life, you're going to be kind of all over them in the recruiting process. And those things kind of bleed through into culture and the fit that they're going to find. And it kind of is what it is. So I think we've done it enough that it's kind of one of those things that's like, it when you see it, like you can kind of feel it as far as the cultural fit with the parent and how that goes with the athlete. And so again, to your original question of what's their role, I just think it's a provider. It's like you're providing that same type of support or opportunity that you have throughout the entire relationship. So I don't think a parent certainly can hurt the recruiting process. I think that we'll take maybe one yellow flag on our team. Our roster's at about 18, maybe in softball where you have double that, you can take 2. But if we get more than 2 yellow flags, it 100% turns into a red flag and we're a hard stop. And the parents can count as much as the player in that regard. But again, it's one of those things that's like you can't really put your finger on it of what it is. A lot of times it's accountability. Like if you hear, hey, what happened with that team? And everything's kind of something that wasn't, oh, they did this or they did that. That's a big yellow flag for us of how it's going to be with us. But again, I don't think parents can overly help too much, but they certainly can hurt. And I just think it's a reflection of the relationship leading up to that moment.
Bobby, what about you?
Yeah, I think you said provider. I was going to say almost facilitator, right? Like you could facilitate a little bit, but there's also like a mediator in some ways, right? Like, obviously the parent doesn't go to school, the child does, right? So like on visits or, where the parent is at, answering the question for, what I mean? Hey, Johnny, what do you think of this? And the parent answers the question, what I mean? Like, we need to hear from them. So I think I'm with Dan on that. Like he said it really well. It's like, I don't think the parents really can't help as much as they can hurt. Right. It's almost like when we talk about like the win, the losses are a lot lower than the highs of wins. Right. The same thing from a parent. Like I think they can hurt more than they can help. Now, I will say a really supportive parent, a very honest parent, I actually think that warms my heart to saying, okay, this kid was raised right. And in our culture and environment, this is the type of people we want around our student athletes at a tailgate, talking to other parents, or when you have a recruit walking by, like those type of things. But I do think is a little bit more hands-off approach from a parental standpoint, but asking the right questions when maybe they need to be asked, like how is it going to be treated? What's the living situation? That stuff is fine for me. But the overbearing, living vicariously through your child, knowing that's going to be like if he's not playing, like don't feel you have a voice to call. These are things that need to be navigated by the student athlete.
Coach Helen?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything they said. I would just probably add on if the parent isn't realistic before the recruiting process starts. So as like, if they're P4 or bust, if they're D1 or bust, I think them, because they poured so much into the sport, into their child, they want to see them at the highest level. But I think them having a realization check of, okay, like what's more realistic for my kid, and that any opportunity to play at the next level is a blessing. So I think prior to them getting to that sophomore year, having the realization of, okay, what's realistic, what's not, and then going from there might help them not be so overbearing at times. But yeah.
Bobby, you've been through this as a dad and as a coach, so I want to start with you for this next question. What do you wish more parents understood about the emotional toll of the recruiting process and how that impacts their kid?
Emotional toll. I think our situation with my daughter's a little different. We knew she wasn't going to be a Division I volleyball player, and it's not because we didn't believe in her. I think she was realistic on where her ability was, but she knew that she really wanted to play volleyball in school. And then we had to go, okay, as a parent, well, you can go anywhere you really want academically and maybe play on a club team. But she wanted more. She wanted to compete. And I think I tell people this all the time, Jonathan, if you want to play your sport in college, there's a place for you. It just may not be, you're not emailing Dan if you're a volleyball player as a top 10 program, right? Like you just got to keep looking. The hard part though, is there is a stress level that comes because if you go to an event or a camp, every Division III school doesn't have the budget to be at all the big volleyball tournaments in Orlando or Kansas City or wherever they are, right, Dan, at that point. And then there's so many kids, the chance that the coach is actually even going to see you is very little. So there is but persistence, right, and doing your due diligence and matching, okay, well, academically, this is where I fit. Location, size of school, what can we afford as a parent? I know this sounds really bad, but the more you could afford does open up more doors. The same way the better your grades are, it opens up more doors. And being very honest to coaches in that, like, hey, I'm not looking for aid, I'm looking for opportunity. Coaches would love to hear that. Now, like if someone calls me and say, hey, I got a full pay kid that can come to Wake, I mean, we're $94,000. I'm perked up. I want you to be good at that point. I really do want you to be good. I just have to find out if you are. But there are stresses. And I think as parents, we add to it, right? I always tell people all the time, just because 3 kids on your team committed, that does not mean you need to commit, right? You need to continue to find the right place and the right fit for you. And something, sometimes those first 3 that commit and early and everybody's excited and all the parents are talking, right, don't have the careers or the success or the happiness in school as the last 3 that found the right place and took the time to find the right place and weren't doing it because of the pressure of the community, the team, or the parents. So I echo it again. I think if you want to play, there's a place for you. It just may not be when you laid down initially, those dream schools, but it could become a dream school because you're happy and you found the right place and the relationships and your opportunity to compete, where most people don't get that opportunity to compete. Like I'm proud of my daughter that she has an opportunity to, to play the game that she loves, and that hard work has paid off.
Coach Helen?
No, I mean, I agree. I think if parents just can be supportive, patient, understanding, let it be their choice. Don't try to drive their decision. Have conversations with them. Don't try to direct them one way or the other. I think that's the best thing that they could do.
Dan?
I'm early in this journey as a parent of a young athletes and all that. So just being open to the conversation, and I'm reminded of we had Trent Dilfer's kid, a great football player back in the day, who is a coach in his own right and all that. And he talked about the coach's hat and just talking about, do you want me to put on the coach's hat? Do you want me to put on the dad hat? Like, where do you need me right now as a parent? And I just try to keep myself open to that. As opposed to us as coaches, sometimes that's hard when it's our own kids, but just understanding which hat we need to wear in the moment.
Can I interject real quick, Jonathan?
Yeah, go for it.
I just want to say something to Dan, like as a parent, right? So now I have a 20-year-old, 11 and 9. All right. And my daughter always hits me. She goes, Dad, I don't need a coach right now. I need my dad. And I just said, but I do think a good dad is a coach, right? Because we're coaching life lessons all the time, right? So I do believe that all of you will be better in this process because you coach and you have this realistic mindset because you live it every day. And I just wish more people had that not knowledge is the wrong word, but just that the idea and understanding, right? That how hard it is to be elite. And I think that my coach hat, I hope, has helped my daughter just as much as my dad had. Just to put that out to you, just as parents.
Love that.
You got to go, Dan? All right, cool.
It's my first ever ACC head coaches meeting. I can't be late to it, guys. So
I got mine tomorrow.
Good luck. Great meeting y'all. All right. We'll see y'all.
Thanks, Dan.
You guys are great.
Hey, we'll do one last thing here just to get off. I like to end every episode with an encouragement, and you guys have hit on it a little bit. But for the parents who are listening to this and they're like, my kid's not Division I know, Bobby, you just hit on it a little bit. There's a place, but my kid just wants to play. They're not worried about the rest of this stuff. If we could leave them with one thought, one encouragement this week, how would you encourage them? Coach Peña, will go with you first.
I would say if they just want to play, I would say then there's probably a spot for you. I think if you put yourself out there and you're open to going to D2s, D3s, NAIAs, they all have camps, at their schools. I would say try to get around them as much as possible. Try to see what the culture is like. But yeah, I mean, if they're just looking to play at the next level, to me, that kind of takes the pressure off. If we're talking about the recruiting process, it takes the pressure off. So that actually might help them play better, be better, love their sport for longer, instead of, having that D1 or bust mindset sometimes. So yeah, I think allowing them to see those different opportunities and that they are out there is good.
And Coach Muuss, last word for the day. What's your encouragement?
Yeah, I like I said earlier, I do think it may not be exactly what you always dreamt about, but any situation is what you make of it, right? And if you want to play your sport and continue your sport after high school, there's a place to do it. I think I tell people all the time, I think club sports at universities are great, the same way that we just spoke about the benefits and the excitement of high school, right? To be around your peers in school, and to be able to still have that social aspect. You're not sacrificing nearly as much, but you get to play the sport that you want. That's not what parents and kids want to hear when they're a committed athlete. But when you look at the percentages, even to be able to do that, right? To be able to do it at an academic institution that matches your standards academically, socially, and what you're looking for, and just to still pursue competing, and you could still develop as well. There's a place for you to continue to do what you love to do. It just maybe not be what you thought of when you first started youth sport. But you and I spoke about this before, Jonathan. It's like, I also think I want parents and kids to remember why they started playing, right? When I put my son into soccer, it was not for him to be a Division I college athlete or a professional soccer player. It's like, I want him to have fun. I want him to be around his friends. I want him to enjoy doing something in a team capacity. And I think that's my words of encouragement. Just remember why we started it, right? And why they continue to play is because they love the sport. So as long as they leave the sport in a good way, right? Like loving it, then we just have to continue to support it. And that's why we started it. Like you don't start your kid just to be a pro. Maybe some do, right? Or Division I. It's because you want them to enjoy it and they want to have fun. And there is a place to continue to do that anywhere.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, so much. I appreciate your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Appreciate you, man.
That's it for today. If you want your weekend playbook, that's my Friday newsletter that gives you a quick tip to help make your weekend games with your kid just a little bit better. Head to healthysportsparents.com/playbook or click down in the show notes for the link. The merch store is open as well. That link is in the show notes. You can grab a hat, a shirt, or a sticker to take this healthy sports message to the sidelines of your kids' games. If you like the show today, I'm going to invite you to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, it'd be a huge help to write a small review. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button as well. If this episode has helped you in any way, the best thing you can do to help us grow the channel and spread this message further is sharing this episode with a friend. Most of all, I hope you enjoy your time with your kids, watching them play the sport they love this weekend. Have a great week. I'll talk to you again soon.